I'm thrilled to welcome our latest guest to this On the Mark podcast. Comes recommended, highly so. It's Iain Highfield. How you doing, my friend? Nice to have you.
I'm very good, Mark. I'm very well. Thank
Well, I appreciate you joining us, and I appreciate I'm looking forward to diving into this content soon, because there's that invisible wall between the range and the first tee for some reason. But we're going to break through that in a little bit. First, I want to put you into context. Please tell the viewers, folks on YouTube and the listeners on this On the Mark podcast, a little bit about you, please.
Yeah, so as you can tell, I'm not from the US. I live in the US now. Accent, I'm originally from England. I grew up in Nottingham. I played rugby, soccer, football for my friends back home, cricket and golf as a junior athlete. Went to university, played rugby at university, still played golf.
What position did you play?
So I actually started off as scrum half.
You and me both until I broke that arm there.
Oh, wow. Okay. So then I got a bit of I was quite good. So I got one of the prima donna ego kicked in and I moved to fly half.
Okay.
And then I realized I wasn't very good. So towards the end, I moved to flanker.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to put this into perspective, because for the American audience, the scrum half is normally fast, diminutive, kind of the decision maker general. The fly half is, he sort of does all things kicking, sort of negotiates the backs.
Yeah.
The flanker, those guys are scrappy and big. How do you navigate these three positions physically?
So I think scrum half was where my dad started me. My dad was a high level rugby coach.
Okay.
And he wanted my hands on the ball pretty early, I think. But I started playing like really, really young. And I started watching my dad coach really, really young, like super young, like 2-3 years old. I'd be on the side of the pitch. So when it got to about 10 years old, 11 years old, where you really start competing, I could read the game well. Okay. So that's why I moved to fly half. Then in college, I realized not big enough, not fast enough to continue to play this game. So that's where the early retirement came in, and golf became my main sport.
Right.
I'd have friends that would come and ask me to play. Hey, can you play in a game? Can you cover it? Can you come here? Can you cover this position? Whatever. And I would say, yes, but because I hadn't practiced kicking, because I hadn't practiced handling, because I didn't know any of the calls or the plays, I would say, you know what, I'll just play flanker. And because I could read the game, kind of knew what the opposition's attack or offense, whatever you want to call it, what they were going to do. And I was doing CrossFit at that time. So I was pretty fit. I could get around the pitch. So that's how all that fell into place.
So open side, 6 or 7, open side or blind side?
Open side.
All right.
Open side. Yeah.
No, you're the game reader. You're looking to knock the opposing fly-offs block.
What people used to do to me, I wanted to do to them.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's a bunch of parallels. Well, first, then you get into the sports performance element of it all.
Yeah.
Health-wise, tell us a bit about that, please.
So that was really all about, I graduated from university, been a good athlete. I was playing golf off three handicap, probably with the US system, scratch handicap. I would compete, and I was continued to study after I graduated university. I was doing a master's in sports coaching, and I was studying sports psychology because I was trying to work out why I failed. I was so good, so young, and I had a lot of unanswered questions, and I was playing golf, and I was getting better, and I was thinking, I didn't have this mindset, or I would learn something in a sports psychology lecture and I'd be like, I didn't apply that into my rugby or into my golf as a junior. And I made friends, obviously, at the golf club, and I started talking to some of my friends, and I started talking to some of their kids, and I started doing a small amount of junior golf coaching at Cookridge Hall Golf Club in Leeds in the UK, where I was playing, and then actually made friends with a great golf coach called Mark Pearson, who was at Alton Hall Golf Club. And I pitched him a few of my ideas, and he gave me like my first break. He gave me a real role. Hey, coach my Euro Pro players. Let's see what you can do.
Mm.
So the things that I'd lacked in my mindset and my practice, I was teaching to a small group of juniors. Then I got the opportunity through Mark to teach it to some Euro and maybe luck, maybe timing, maybe some of my coaching. Those Euro Pro players did all right.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
then I became
talk about jumping into fire. I mean, you're going from juniors to guys who are trying to make it playing for a living. There's a lot of people don't realize the pressure that's on the professional golfer, the average golfer, that is, because you think of pro golfer and you think of kind of the glitterati, the private jets and the Four Seasons hotels.
yes.
But down there in the minor leagues, if you will, it is dog eat dog. I mean, it is basically eat what you shoot kind of thing.
Yeah, that you know, so Tiger's going to play in this Masters, right? And if he has a putt on 18 to win the Masters, it would be unbelievable. And everyone will say, "Oh, there's a lot of pressure." I would agree, but I would say some of the guys I coached on the Euro Pro or that then made it to the Challenge Tour and the European Tour, they're stood over putts, wondering if they make this putt or they miss this putt, will they be able to pay their mortgage? Will they be able to pay their car payment? Will they be able to? One of the players I worked with had three kids when he first got onto the European Tour. One of his quotes is he got through Q school and he was over the moon, and then all of a sudden he thought, I'm 70,000 euros in debt. How am I going to afford to play? Yeah. So it really was, and I was still learning at that time, but I think what the players liked about me is I was on this journey of learning and trying to apply different things. And my energy for it was high. My passion was high. I was reading every single night. And I think a lot of that mindset, it could have just been my energy or my aura that I was giving off was infectious, and it wore into them and their golf. So it might have been more how I was going about my life and what I was trying to do, like my actions at that time, maybe more than my coaching. Wow. But that was a fun time, and I'm still friends with I still coach. I've actually got a call with one of them who's on the European Tour now after this podcast, Daniel Gavins, unbelievably.
Well, look, I mean, that's testament to who you are and what your approach is, what your style is, the information you share, all that sort of thing. I want to fast forward some in the interest of time, and so you can get to that call also. So you moved to the States, you were the DLGA, and you sought out by all and sundry, and you've written a few books. So here we are, kind of thing now.
Yeah. So in the States now, I just started a year ago. I'm the director of an academy in Boston called KOHR Golf. KOHR Golf approached me and asked if I was interested in taking on that role. And I felt like that was a huge breakthrough for me and maybe the industry, an actual golf academy, wanting the director to not be a swing-based guy or an instruction-based guy, to be a mindset, an effective practice guy. So my wife from Cape Cod, she told me I had to take the job. So both of those things played into the decision. And yeah, I'm coaching out of there now. And everything I learned in my time in Florida at the junior golf academies, everything I've learned and I'm still learning in my consulting role at David Ledbetter Golf Academy, and all the professors that I've spoken to, all the great coaches I've had time to talk with, it's kind of formed this eclectic, holistic approach to golf's mental game and golf practice. And I'm very fortunate to apply it at KOHR every day with the kids. And I also get to work with Penn State, a few tour players, UGA, the women's team at UGA. So the philosophy that I've evolved with help from so many others is definitely catching on, and I feel is pretty effective.
Well, no doubt. I'm going to refer to a book that you sent me called Golf Practice, and essentially how to practice golf and take your range game to the course. And I would highly advocate that folks who are listening to this go and get it. I've got it in a digital form here on my phone right now. And there's certain elements I want to touch on, but let's just kick the whole thing off with this. Somehow, to all us golfers, being on the range or being in the practice facility and then stepping on the first tee and stepping into the arena, if you will, whether it's against your buds, by yourself, in a tournament, it's just different. And we go through this mental gymnastics, and what we can do so freely in practice sometimes just becomes a non-event oftentimes when we're competing or when we're playing or when it means something. So let's start right there and sort of get the ball rolling.
Yeah. So when golfers are on the golf range, the key word, the underpinning thing is context. There is a lack of context on the golf range.
All right.
So an analogy that I would use is if you want to swim a triathlon and the part is in the sea, are you going to lie in your bathtub and practice your stroke, or are you going to dive in the sea and swim?
Mm-hmm.
Because the bathtub lacks context. It lacks the temperature. It lacks the waves. It can lack the current. So often I think that people are trying to learn to swim in their bathtub when they're playing golf. Because again, you stand on the range, you can hit the same shot to the same target over and over and over again. But there's not the psychological pressure of score. There's not the environmental demands of slope, wind, differing lies, flags, water. And also, one of the biggest ones that people don't pick up on is there's not the space between each shot.
Yeah.
So that's huge. And these were scientists that taught me this. And then I started to actually see the practical application of it in my mind. The spacing effect. So most people on the range are getting hold of a feeling and keeping it. The minute you go on the golf course, all you're going to do is lose that feeling and be fighting to recall it.
Mm-hmm.
So the spacing effect, most golfers will hit 20 balls in maybe 10 minutes. When you're on the golf course, 20 balls is over a large period of time. And then there's variability in it. Then you add in the next factor of variability. It's a different shot every time. So that's why skills often don't stick or don't transfer to the golf course, because of spacing and because of variability.
Yeah, and you touch on those early in the book. I want to camp here for a little bit because you get my mind going. First off, I want to, let me hit this right off the bat, because the businessman or businesswoman listening, they're like, oh, this is all fine and dandy, and he makes a lot of sense, but I've got other commitments, family, work, et cetera. So my practice time is minimized. So let's say they're like, well, I want to get my game to the course, and I recognize that I must, try and simulate the environments as far as possible, but I've only got 30 minutes to practice. So what say you then when it comes to spacing? Because I know you can hit different clubs and different lies in a short space of time.
Yeah. So the first thing, realistically, if every golfer that practiced on the range, that had limited time, just said to themselves, these 20 balls are going to last 20 minutes.
All right.
If they just did that, that would highly improve the quality of their practice, because they would hit ball number one. They could walk. The ball should be not in the bucket next to them, because that's a terrible environment. Place the balls behind you 5-10 yards, walk, Get your next ball, put it down. And then what's happened is, because of the space between the shot, your brain has forgotten what you just did. So you have to fight a little bit to recall it.
Yeah.
That minute creates that spacing effect. So you're not getting hold of a feeling and keeping it. You're learning to lose the feeling and recall it. So I would say to every golfer, hit 20 balls in 20 minutes, 1 ball a minute. Collect 1 ball at a time, and then potentially after every 5 balls, you might want to change task. So if you're fortunate enough to get good advice from PGA professionals or coaches, first 5 balls, apply that advice, focusing on your golf swing, whatever it is your coach is telling you. And then next 5 balls, you might want to hit pitch shots to a target. And then the next 5 balls, revert back to working on your golf swing. And again, there's been more space and there's been a different task. So now your brain, or as the scientists would say, your working memory has to strive to recall that information that you had 5 minutes ago. And that's how we learn. We don't learn through muscle memory. We don't learn through repetition. That doesn't happen. That's actually a very ineffective way of learning. The best way to learn is lose the feeling and try and recall it, and that will make those swing changes stick. But it's not comfortable and it's not fun. So that's your quandary there.
Well, speaking of quandaries, but first off, what you say there makes so much sense. And I'm like, I can rarely see this getting done. And I can see people using 20 minutes very effectively. And also they're not running the risk because, you know, the drill, you know, the block practice, which you talked about some in your book there. You're like, I'm going to get this. And I've read somewhere that Bruce Lee said I must practice a kick 10,000 times. And so the next thing, this poor golfer's worn them out in the middle of the Florida or Georgia summer, and their form is waning because of fatigue. So I see what you're saying, being so beneficial and keeping the mind and the body fresh. But I want to pivot some, and this is the conundrum for me, the quandary, is that I'm deep down a golf teacher. Yet I will be the first one to say that improving your game by changing your swing is intellectually lazy. Because it's in a strange sort of a way, I think from a physical standpoint, but I'm holistic, knowing where everything comes from mentally, emotionally, spiritually even. And so I want your take there, because so many golfers, they're like, well, I want to get better. And then they listen to a podcast or this one, or they go on YouTube and they get some golf tip. Then the next thing, they're making this endeavor purely physical, which I think is a misstep.
Yeah, so there's a couple of points to that. The first thing is I couldn't agree with you more, because the mind moves the body moves the club, and the club moves the ball. Mm-hmm. So wherever we position our mind has a direct impact on how the club is going to move around the body. Even the term swing thought, people relate that, right, to technique and mechanics, but you're thinking it. It's mental. So everything we do starts with a thought. So when I'm coaching a player, I want to first address what's in their mind. Where is their attentional focus? Mm-hmm. That's what I would look at. Is their focus optimal for getting the most out of their swing? Not swinging someone else's swing or building a swing, for getting the most out of their swing. Then I'll bring in one of my fitness guys, like Coach Kevin at KOHR. I'd have him do a full screen, and I'll now want to know if there's any interference in the body. Okay. So my role is to remove any interference in the mind. Then I want to know if there's any interference in the body, you know, through a TPI screen. Can they get in certain positions to make the swing that they want to swing? Gotcha. And then after that, I would have a swing coach, one of the guys that I work with at KOHR, like Luke Cantillo or Zach Parker down at the KOHR Academy. I would have them look at the mechanics. So mind moves body, body moves club, club moves ball. I want the mind to be clear. I want the body to be unimpeded. And then the mechanics is actually the third stop on the pyramid for me.
I want you to repeat that again in terms of stops on the pyramid, because you do have the pyramid inside of the book, or at least there's a diagram of a pyramid. I didn't go into mere culpa of looking through it, but I think that's so apropos. And again, I'm listening to you like a golfer, not a golf instructor or an interviewer. I'm like, you know, I want to get better at this golf thing. And so many people go into practice just with what their concept is of practice. It's like, oh, I got to go and hit balls on the range. Then I got to maybe hit a few, not even if I'm lucky as an instructor, they hit a few bunker shots or whatever. So their
Yeah.
concept to improvement is flawed, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and concept is a big thing here, because conceptually so many golfers are wrong. Because you've highlighted there, okay, I'm going to improve, I'm going to change my golf swing. So sorry, my connection cut out a little bit there.
No worries.
Conceptually, golfers are wrong so often, because, okay, I want to increase higher performance, and the concept they have of that is, I'm going to change my swing. Well, actually, if you position your mind in a different place, you'll move with more freedom and flow,
Mm-hmm.
and that will get the most out of your current swing. Another concept that they have that's wrong is, you could do the reading on a thing called Bernstein's hammer. If you are a super nerd, Google degrees of freedom, Bernstein's hammer.
All right.
And if you're not a super nerd, just take my word for it. When you reduce degrees of freedom in the golf swing, i.e., when you really try and tighten up how that club is going to move around the body, you will perform worse.
Yeah.
Because it impedes freedom and flow. The golf swing is not repeatable. The golf swing has variations in it. So when we see the best players in the world, Justin Thomas's round of golf at the Players in those conditions was the best round of golf that I have. Might be the most enjoyable that apart from when Tiger won the Masters, that might be the most enjoyable round of golf I've watched, because I'm watching it knowing, oh my goodness, this guy is completely focused on the shot shape, and he has absolutely opened up the degrees of freedom in his swing. He was playing golf, not golf swing. And those players that try and get that perfect swing, it leads to tension, it leads to technical impedance, and you don't have the ability to adapt and react to the environment around you. And that club that's traveling so fast around your body, there has to be some reactionary element to it.
Yeah. Well, look, what you said there, everyone listening to this or watching this has lived. If they're honest with themselves, they're like, well,
Myself too.
yeah, they're like, well, the harder I try, the worse it gets. And I recently had a lesson with a talented young lady, and she was going along well. And I was trying to, be cognizant of how skillful and talented she was, even though she doesn't shoot as well as what she should. And so I was trying not to overcoach. And I drew an illustration for her. I made a metaphor for what she wanted to do. I sort of gave her the goal. I let her discover it some. And she went along well, and all of a sudden it fell off. And then she looked at me, she goes, I'm getting in my own head. And she goes, just give me a minute. And she took a step away, closed her eyes a bit, got up to it and hit the next few fine again. And so I was fascinated going, describe to me what getting in your head was. And she goes, no, I'm trying too hard to do it.
Yeah.
Which is this tightrope we all have to walk because we want to do it, but you've also got to sort of let it go and find that freedom you talk about some.
Yeah, I do think there is a time to try hard on the golf course, and that is, when everyone watches the Masters next week, they'll be trying hard with their caddy, and when they're in the yardage book, they'll be really cognitive then. Where don't I want to hit this? Where's the wind? Where do I want to hit this? What does that look like? If it lands there, where's the green? What's the best place to miss this green? They are the supercomputers in the tour player's brain and the amount of cognition that's going on, that part of the pre-shot routine, the options and the selection phase of the pre-shot routine is immense. Now, they then have this skill. They take all that concrete data and boom, visualization takes that data and turns it into something more sensory, this world of imagination, see, feel, hear. And by the time they've finished visualizing and they're over the golf ball, the people who are at the leaderboard, they're completely reactive, subconscious. And that trying hard has really reduced, and that freedom and flow has super increased. Now, what I see with a lot of golfers they don't try hard in the strategy part. They're just kind of like, oh, I'm going to hit it there towards that area. Or maybe it's a lot of golfers, I'm just going to hit it the flag.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of free and flowing. And then as they get over the ball, the cognition is increasing and increasing. They don't have a clear plan. They're overthink mechanics. They're worried about the outcome, and they get so you've almost got to flip it on its head to what is natural for the human or the golfer to do.
Yeah, and along those lines, I mean, at times, back when I was a college coach, I would sometimes caddy for one of my players. I wasn't carrying the bag, but I just walk along, and I would be motivational, certainly, but I was just a pure numbers guy. And when they arrive at the ball, I started hitting them with, that's the flag, that's the back number, that's what it's got to do. This is where the wind is. This is how it's playing. And I found more often than not that for the junior golfer, and I'm sure this is now right in your wheelhouse, but this applies to everybody, it didn't allow time in the mind for anxiety or panic, all those sorts of very real emotions that go on, expectation, that sort of stuff, because they were so into the data. So when they got over the ball, the mind hadn't wandered to all that other white noise that can ruin golf shots.
Yeah, it's a big part of the process. You'll hear a lot of players again this weekend at the Masters. I'm just going to focus on the process. I'm just going to focus on the process. And that's the things that they can control, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're super focused on strategy, super focused on visualization, super focused on shot commitment, maybe pre and post shot breathing, all the things that they can control. If you can place your mind onto those, you've got this sense of solace, you've got this protection, this cocoon around you that's going to help you play better golf. Because all that white noise, as you put it, winning, what it might lead to, swing mechanics, what's going wrong, where don't I want to hit it, I don't hit it in the water, don't hit it in the rough, all of those things, they're very, very, very distracting. So as a college coach, you giving them information that's fueling their process is obviously a big thing to keep their mind in the position that it needs to be for them to play their best golf.
Okay, for the weekend warrior listening to this, they're like, sounds cool. Here's a elite performance coach, Iain speaking, a former college coach, instructor, me, who now carries a microphone for a living. And they're rapping about stuff which sounds kind of above me. But for me, is going out with my buds maybe tomorrow or whatever, and I just want to win the bet and the $5 and the beers afterwards. How do I find that place? Is it as simple as doing what we've just said, or is there some other key for the guys who are driving around in carts, girls that is, or whatever, just trying to find their best on a weekend?
Yeah, I think so. I have a lot of Zoom clients that might be 12 to 5 handicap that are really trying to get to that next level.
Yeah.
I'm specifically thinking of one, Michael, who's a pastor in Spain. Great guy. He's like the most motivated golfer. So what we did with him was, as he's picking his target, he has to ask himself one question. If I hit the ball here if I pick this target and hit at this target 10 times, how many go in the, and then it would be like a swear word. How many go in the S? Or we'll say trash, right? How many go in the trash?
Yeah.
That's the only thing he does in strategy. And we're trying to get a target that only 1 or 2 will go in the trash, because we're just trying to avoid penalty shots. Mm-hmm. So Michael walks up to the golf ball. If I hit 10 balls at this target, how many go in the trash? As long as it's less than 3, good target, off you go.
All right.
Then as he walks to the ball, he's focused on his breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And as he stands over the ball, he's focused on grip pressure and tempo. That's it.
Wow.
That's it. Because they're all... Go on, Mark. Sorry.
No. I cut over you. I thought you were done. But you just touched on an element. We get a lot of folks reaching out via social media, messaging and stuff, asking questions. And I remember seeing last night that someone had said, hey, I'm reading about breathing so much, and I hear guys like, Iain, for argument's sake, talk about breathing and how important it is. And me personally, I'm learning how I sort of live more anaerobically because of poor breathing. And so as a result, my body is never normalizing. I'm never going from, the sympathetic to the parasympathetic and vice versa.
Yeah.
So do please
Yeah.
comment there.
Yeah. So I think diaphragmatic breathing, so the breathing that I teach, in through your nose for 4 seconds, belly fills with air, like really pushing it as low as you can, expanding the diaphragm, and out through your mouth. It basically, the negative mind in your brain, or the chimp, as I call it, with the players that I work with, it's like giving the chimp a little whiskey. Just going to relax that chimp just that little bit for you.
Yeah, right.
And like you said, it's going to help block out the white noise. So there's a psychological or a physiological response to that that's going to help you access your golf swing. And then there's also, you're avoiding the negative psychological or physiological response of thinking of the wrong things. So breath work is great as well, because it will help you control tempo and tension.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of golfers, club golfers, rather than working on like wrist angles or getting open at impact, some of the things we would see on the PGA Tour, I think if they just learn to breathe, have good grip pressure, good balance, good tempo, they would hit the center of the face more often. And if they hit the center of the face more often, they're going to have more fun. And that's really where we go. And if I go back to Michael, he keeps a scorecard where he actually grades how well he does this after every shot. And then he'll send me the scorecard. And the scorecard that he's sending me, he's working towards valuing it more than the scorecard where he writes down his gross score. So I think that if you can make that mindset shift, and if you can just have one or two key processes, one based around strategy, one based around breathing, one to keep the chimp quiet when you execute the shot, and you score those after every shot or even every hole, I just think more people are going to enjoy the game than if they're worrying about score, worrying about embarrassing themselves, and trying to perfect their golf swing while they're playing. It's just a better state all round to be in.
Do excuse the dogs in the background here. One more question about the breathing there. You
Yes.
spoke about 4 seconds in. What about the exhale?
Yeah, sorry, 4 seconds out as well. So, I actually spoke to a music teacher from I can't remember, one of the famous music schools, about high performance. And they said the first thing that they do is they get their students to lie on the floor. They put a stack of books on their belly. They breathe in through the nose, and the books have to go up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And then they breathe out through the mouth, and the books have to come down. And that's teaching them diaphragmatic breathing. And that's because it's very important in music to be able to breathe in the diaphragm, but also it's a great tactic for optimizing the mind and body for human performance. So I got students to lie down on the floor, put the butt of their golf club on their belly, breathe in through their nose, make the golf club go up, make the golf club come down. They would do that 3 or 4 times, and then I would get them to get up and just keep that breath work going and hit the ball. And I immediately saw that ball striking was improving. And then I recently started to speak to a company called NeuroPeak.
All right.
I read a book called Breath by James Nestor. I think it might be the one that you maybe have read, or you might be familiar with that from some of the stuff you're saying. But I read that book. I connected with NeuroPeak. And then myself and NeuroPeak are now looking at where is the optimal place to breathe in the pre-shot routine.
Wow.
And how can we help golfers get more mind-body consistency, especially the club golfer, whereas if they just do this, they'll find the center of the face more. And we have an idea, but not an answer. I don't know if you want me to share it, because it's only an idea now.
Stay tuned, right? Yeah, well, look, I think there's a case that could be made for this. That look, it's an easy way to improve your game. It's certainly an easy way to guarantee mental and emotional equilibrium because isn't golf strange? And this is sort of my parting comment, and I want you to put a bow on it. Isn't golf strange where if you ask a lot of folks what their goal is behind playing, they might say, "Well, I want to shoot my best," or but most folks will be like, "Well, I'm going to have fun," or "I'm going to." Spend some time with the boys or reduce the stress. Yet golf, for 4 hours on a golf course or whatever the case might be, will take you through the emotional ringer half of the time. And I think the breathing and adopting this approach you're talking about is a guaranteed way to make sure you sort of stay in that not Zen state, but a place where the highs aren't ridden too high and the lows certainly aren't ridden too low.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to add to that because it's 100% correct. Like you really are like spot on with what you've just said. I think the one thing I'll add that makes me love like what I do
Mhm.
is I get to teach this to professional athletes, to young children, to collegiate athletes. And it gets to the point that when they're doing it on the golf course, they start to understand that this can transcend the boundaries of golf.
Yeah, no
So,
kidding.
like, if you are stressed in a meeting, if you are stressed in a meeting and you went and laid in the staff room floor and put your mobile phone on your belly and in through your nose for four, phone comes up, out through your mouth for four, phone comes down, and you just let thoughts come into your mind, acknowledge the thought, let them go. You can then leave the staff room. You'll be a high performer back in that meeting. If you're a student that's going to take a spelling test and you're one of those that gets anxious, on the car ride to school, you can do these breathing exercises and they'll help you. If ever you're coming on the Mark podcast and you're not nervous, you can do your breathing exercises before, right?
Yeah.
I can't really add to what you said because it's so accurate. I just want to recommend that everyone listening, if golf is your passion, learn diaphragmic breathing and how to clear your mind on the golf course. And it can end up making you a better husband, a better wife, a better brother or sister, a better friend, a better listener, a better business person, whatever you want it to be.
Well, you started with an effective way to practice, recognizing spacing and variability, and you've ended with just improving people's overall well-being with proper breathing. What a fantastic and helpful podcast. All right. So, two things, please. I want you to share with folks where they can find your books, where they can find you online,
Yep.
social media, and such. And then we need a recommendation, please, because you, of course, were recommended.
So all my books are on Amazon. So if you just go on Amazon and if you typed in golf practice, Iain Highfield, I've got 3 books.
Mhm.
The most popular one is the one that I sent to you. The yellow, it's black and yellow. It says golf practice, how to practice golf and take your range game to the golf course.
Mhm.
And then I have 2 Instagram. So KOHR Academy, KOHR.
Mhm.
That's KOHR Academy. And the other Instagram is Game L Training. I post on both of those, and that really just it's me coaching live, and anyone can DM me on there, and it's more sort of games, challenges, effective practice, and effective thinking for all levels of golfer.
Awesome.
Uh, and then,
And
ooh,
wait, allow me. And folks, it's Iain with 2 I's, Iain. When we're searching for him online.
I, I
Okay.
should have been the one to remember that, you know.
Right there.
Good save.
Thank
Good
you.
save. And then I think as far as a guest, I would have definitely recommended Kevin, but he recommended me.
Uh-huh.
Stuart Morgan's already been on. Stuart Morgan,
Excellent.
huge mentor of mine, just an unbelievable golf coach. I think a good guest might be. I don't know. Have you ever had Mark Pearson on from
Mark Pearson? Mm,
Mark Pearson?
not
Mark
unless my memory fails me, no.
So Mark Pearson was the person who gave me my first break. PMG Academies in England. When I was going out on the European tour with the players he was working with, he was taking the most holistic approach that I've seen. Before I met Stu, he was the most holistic golf coach that I've seen, and he's also a very smart businessman in the golf industry. Did a lot for me. The other one would be Zach Parker. Zach Parker, junior golf and junior development, and just overall passion and energy. There's no he's at Better Golf Academy and worked for their junior golf academy. He did a great podcast with me on junior development. That would be a good one for parents of junior golfers.
Sounds fantastic. You're such a giver. I appreciate you, and you're so free with your time. Iain, you're the best. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for joining us. It's been fantastic.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I love listening to the podcast. It's one of the best out there. Thank you.